Okay.
Okay, hi friends. Welcome to Digging for Gold, another great episode. I'm Dan Goldberg. My guest today is Malcolm McGraw, a good friend. We've known each other for many years. Malcolm was the president of the Philadelphia Commercial Development Corporation here in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And he is also a business consultant, a financial consultant, works with all kinds of companies to help them get the money they need to do the things they need to do. So, Malcolm, welcome.
Thank you very much. Thank you for inviting me.
It's my pleasure. And tell me a little bit about the commercial development when you were running that organization, what it did and how it built things up, and then what happened.
Okay.
Okay?
PCDC, Philadelphia Commercial Development Corporation, was a quasi-public, kind of meaning that it had ties to the city but was not run by the city. It had a board of directors that was predominantly selected by the mayor. It had people who were managing who were certainly more inclined towards commercial than governmental.
Okay.
And what it was supposed to do, and what it did quite well for a number of years, certainly before I arrived there, was provide loans to people who normally would not be able to qualify.
Okay.
These were people who could walk into a bank, give them their business plan, hope for the best, but always seem to get the worst. So those were the people who would come in, and we would work with them, not just in trying to make the business plan stronger, but having them understand what it is that makes a business plan work.
Right.
So we did a lot of that. We made a number of loans from under different programs for, I don't know how many years.
Were you direct loaners?
We provided direct loans.
Wow.
However, for most of our programs, in order for us to make a direct loan, we had to convince a commercial lender to participate.
Okay. Okay.
So,
Sort of like the SBA in a way.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Okay.
And I personally thought that was a good way to do that. You get a number of agencies who decide that they just want to make a loan to make a loan, or make a loan because I like this person. Here we couldn't do that very easily because we had to have someone else who had a financial interest, another bank or another lender, to agree also to put money into a situation, and they generally put the majority of the money.
I got you. Okay. So that it's somebody to push back in a way. Okay?
Yes.
And being quasi-governmental, it's almost like the Federal Reserve Bank, right? The Federal Reserve Bank is not really owned by the government, but it's
That's
quasi
right.
and things like that.
Yeah.
So that's what you had. You had the mayor.
Yeah, except,
doing that.
of course, Federal Reserve won't lend you any money.
No, the last time I knocked on the door and the guy said, "I'm sorry, we're closed." I said, "It's 12 o'clock." He said, "Well, we're closed. We're at lunch." I said, "Well, when are you coming back from lunch?" "We don't." So I figured, okay, I'm done.
That's Federal Reserve for you.
Yeah, Federal Reserve.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that we did, which was as important, and in some cases more important, was that we worked with our clients. We provided all kinds of managerial technical assistance to them. And it would amaze you to know how many people have an idea for a startup and no idea of how to run that startup. They just don't understand business at all. They think that that's going to be the easy part.
Right.
And generally, that's what puts them out of business.
Yeah. I've seen it too many times.
Yeah, I've been involved with this kind of thing even prior to PCDC, of course. And when working under contract with the Small Business Administration, one of the things I would do was go out and meet with construction contractors who were looking to borrow. And the first thing I would hear from each and every one of them when I said, "Okay, what's the problem? I need money." every one of them, they thought that that would solve their problem. And
Right.
I would try to explain to them immediately that you may need money, but there are probably some other problems here. And if we don't solve those problems, the money won't help.
Yeah.
A number of people that I talked to, worked with, were able to get it. They understood that. They happily took the advice that I would give them and other people would give them. Others wouldn't, and most of them, weren't around for very long.
Yeah, it's amazing. You're bringing up some really necessary points, and I want to dig a little deeper in that.
Sure.
Like our listeners and viewers who are in business or want to go into business or have some great idea and haven't thought about a business, but after listening to this, may want to go in business. What are the main things that some entrepreneur or would-be entrepreneur needs to do in order to be successful, in order to run a company that's not going to run itself into the ground? What do you suggest they do, and why?
Okay. I guess the very first thing is understand you are making a complete commitment here. And by a complete commitment, I mean a complete commitment of your time, your resources, everything that you have is going to go into this business. You don't, some people think, oh, I'll go into business and I'll be able to sit back and tell people what to do. No, that's not the way it works. You end up doing a lot of the work, probably most of the work yourself. You're the person who, when you don't know something, you can't afford to go out and find the expert and pay them to teach you what you really need to know. So you have to do a lot of the work yourself. You have to train yourself. It's in some ways it's like going back to school again.
Yeah.
You have to develop skills that you may have never thought that you would need. When it comes to hiring people, there's a whole raft of skills that go with that, and you have to get it right. So you have to have a complete commitment of your time, and if you're a family person, you have to have a commitment from your family.
Yeah. It's true. And a lot of business people that are entrepreneurs have to have some sort of a business plan, correct?
Yes.
And I know that you look at business plans and you help people with business plans. And that business plan for a lot of entrepreneurs, maybe even people watching right now, could be in their head. Okay, it's in their head what they do, what the market is, who their demographic is, all that stuff. They know it. You talk to the entrepreneur, boy, I know my market. Well, write it down. Write all this down,
Yes.
so that someone like Malcolm could view it and say, what is it? Okay, why did you choose these people? Okay, why did you choose this brand? What are you doing here? And I don't know how many people understand the importance of a business plan.
I would say a lot of the people that I've seen who are interested in going into business really had no understanding of a business plan, and they thought it was just another piece of paper and something that they had to put together, and they didn't worry very much about getting the right numbers and getting the numbers right. They didn't worry very much about how they were going to manage this business, who was going to be responsible for what.
Right.
And if you're having employees, you certainly have to be able to, when first going into this, you have to know what they're going to do and how they're going to do it. Unfortunately, many people kind of fall apart when it comes to trying to put words on paper.
Mm-hmm.
It's difficult. Many of them have never done it. If they have done it, it's been years, and it's more technical writing than probably they've ever done before.
Yeah. It's interesting because, we've known each other for years.
Yeah.
teach. I'm a professor,
Mm-hmm.
and we go through business plans and so forth. And one of the things that usually is a little tougher step is the Excel sheets, the financials,
Yes.
because people may say, I have a great idea for this, I have a great idea for that. And okay, good. I got a logo I thought about, and I have this thing and that thing. All right, well, tell me how you're going to make money.
Yeah.
And then you go through it, and I'm sure you've seen this, and you say, well, wait a minute now, you've done 3 years of spreadsheets, and you're still losing money.
Mm-hmm.
And it gets worse every year,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So what do you do? How do you corral those people? How do you tell them you're walking down the wrong path?
Well, what you have to do then is you have to look at all of their numbers, and you have to in your head be able to determine where they're going wrong, if they're going wrong.
Mm-hmm.
In some instances, you have to look them in the eye and tell them this isn't going to work. It just what you're trying to do isn't feasible,
Right.
and you need to find something else. Yes, something that's going to either give this a kickstart or move into something different, because what you're trying to do right now won't work. They hate to hear that.
They do.
They
I know.
hate
They
it.
hate it. They hate it. Ah, that's the worst. Malcolm, I'm telling you, he's the worst. Blah 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 blah. But you're telling them the truth.
Yes.
Is that the biggest downfall? What do you think the biggest downfall is for most people going into business?
I think the biggest downfall is that too many people go into business when they shouldn't.
Okay.
There are people who are cut out to be business people.
Right.
There are people who just aren't.
Yeah.
And, I love kind-hearted people,
Me too.
but kind-hearted people often don't make it in the business world because you have to make hard decisions.
Yes, you do.
And some of those decisions are just so difficult, people refuse to make them, and when they don't make the decision, they pay for it. Comes right
Yeah.
out of their bottom line.
It does, and out of their pocket.
Absolutely.
Out of their pocket, and you I guess you can't be risk adverse. You can't be risk adverse, but a lot of people think they're risk adverse, but they're not.
Yes.
Okay, so they begin to freak out. And another thing, and I'm sure you've seen this, is that someone loves something, a fashion, a style,
Yeah.
and that's what they want to sell,
Yes.
not realizing that they're the only ones that like that, right? They're the only one, or maybe there's 12 other
Yeah,
people.
they've got 5 friends
They got
who
who like
it.
that, and their parents or their family say, "Oh, it's a great idea. It's a great idea."
Yes.
Because they don't want to hurt their feelings.
Yes.
Okay. So, have you run into people who I know you, and I know that some people have run to you in panic. Am I
Yes.
right?
Absolutely, yes.
And what is that panic from?
That panic generally stems from anywhere from as little as 6 months to several years of making bad decisions. And they thought when they were making those decisions that everything was going to work out just fine for them. And they didn't realize that the decision they made simply complicated their situation. Again, I've been around so many business people who think that the answer is all I need is more money. And in some respect, sure, if you had unlimited amounts of money just being poured out of a basket to you,
Right.
you're going to feel fine and think that you've made it.
Right.
But that's not the reality.
Right. Right. And then they freak when the money runs out.
Absolutely. With no money, the bank is now, putting pressure on you. whoever it is that you're working with in your business, the other businesses, they're putting pressure on you.
Yeah.
Your family's putting pressure on you.
Your
The
credit
government is
score-
putting
the
pressure on
government's
you.
putting pressure on you, yeah. And your credit score is like 4,
Yeah,
right?
yes.
So you're freaking out. 4's not good, folks. 850 is good. 4, not good. But then what happens with their families? Have you run into that?
I've seen families break up over a business, more than I like to remember. I've seen other families who just, a wife and husband who just refuse to give up on each other. And they rode with each other as far as you could possibly ride, and sometimes it was just a steep downhill. But, sometimes the bond between them is enough to get them through it, but they still come out of it the same way, broke.
Yeah. But they're together.
They're together, but broke.
Broke together.
Yeah.
You broke the whole thing. So, from your commercial development background,
Yes.
you worked with companies that are building buildings too? Did you
Yes.
do that?
Yes, actually, before going with Philadelphia Commercial Development Corporation, I worked for an engineering construction management firm.
Right, I remember that, yeah.
Yeah, so I've understood a lot about the building process.
So, now I got 2 questions for you. What are you doing now? I know you're helping people now.
Yeah.
And what do you see the future of Philadelphia? And that goes for most big cities, okay?
Okay. What I'm doing now is I'm not retired. I don't know that I'll ever be retired. I don't know what I would do if I were retired.
I have a saying. Retire for me anyway, probably for you. I can't retire because to me, retirement is waiting for death.
Yes.
That's it. And I'm just going to go as long as I can, and then
Yeah.
I'll retire. I'll retire when I'm dead,
That's right. That's exactly how I see it.
and I'll have plenty of time to relax after that, as what's his name, Warren Buffett said.
Yeah.
So okay, so you're
Yeah.
not retired.
Yeah, so I'm not retired. I still work with clients, and I try to develop some innovative ideas of my own in terms of what can work and what can't work out here. And most of those things have some form of public benefit. I think that it's important to make money. I mean, that's number
Making
one.
money.
You're not in business if you're not making money.
Right, that's right.
So
that's right.
to me, it's important that you make money, but it's also important to be able to find a way to help other people, either help them make money, help them put together a plan or a process or whatever it is that they need to put together to help them and to help others. The idea that, to be a business person you have to be ruthless just isn't true. There are so many businesses that are out here, and they survive, they thrive because they're doing things that people want and need.
Yeah, and they're kind, and they take care of people,
Yes,
and people return and they tell their friends.
yes,
So the ruthless people, the people who take advantage of people, they don't last as long as the other ones. I mean, I know they can be making money, but the ones who are kind and good, take care of their customers and make money, will be around for a long time.
yes. The ruthless ones, some of them, I don't know, they because they're ruthless and will do anything, yeah, they'll survive for a long time too.
Yeah,
But it's a question of who you want to be.
exactly.
And you don't have to be the ruthless person in order to make money.
No, and what will your legacy be in that case?
Absolutely.
If you're ruthless.
Yeah.
So here we are, sitting Philadelphia,
Mhm.
PA, in the United States of America. That's in Pennsylvania. Just kidding with everybody, they know that. But I always say it's the city that founded a nation. Okay,
Yes.
so here we are. What do you see the future of cities like Philadelphia? Could be New York, Could be Baltimore, could be DC, could be LA or Chicago or wherever. What do you see happening from a business and commercial standpoint?
Yeah, I have kind of a broad perspective on that. In my in my very first professional job, what I did was fly around the country under contract to the federal government to look at a wide range of social and economic programs. So I got to see a lot of cities, a lot of towns, a lot of, you name it, I've pretty much seen everything from Indian reservations. I've been to all kinds of places. Uh, in doing that, I think my perspective sometimes is a bit different in terms of where we're headed. I don't like what I'm seeing going on with major cities. Coast to coast, there are some that seem to be trying to come back from some hard times, but I think a lot of the decision making in those cities is not good. And in some cases, I think even warped. You know, there are too many people who don't understand that running a city, running a town, is not very different than running a business.
Exactly.
If you're going to run it, you have to run it at a profit. Now, the profit here may not be financial. It may not be that you're looking to fill the city's coffers and bank a lot of money, but you do have to have goals. Those goals have to make sense, and you have to look at everyone in that city and how everyone benefits. I don't see a lot of that, particularly in cities in the kind of situation that Philadelphia finds itself in. A lot of challenges, and unfortunately, a lot of people who are involved in what I'll just call the upper realms, the people who are decision makers, involved in things that are going to perhaps benefit them, but not benefit the city, and not benefit the people.
Yeah.
And I think that when you look at most of the big cities now, they're making decisions often based on politics and personal preferences rather than the overall good.
That's interesting because, I've had locations in many cities, and I've seen cities from Philly and Boston and LA and all the major cities.
Oh yeah.
And I've seen this. How can I say this? This. I don't want to say decay because it's not really decay. It's more about what you were talking about. It's more of misappropriation of resources
Yes.
and power.
Yes.
Okay, so and this is not from a political standpoint. It can be from any party or no party. Okay,
Right.
but sometimes people forget why they're there, that are running cities, why they're there, and states.
Yeah.
Same thing. So, as I look at it and as I listen to you, I tend to agree with you. I mean, we're seeing a I don't know. I don't want to say decay, but because everything can be turned around, but there's a misappropriation of things.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, unfortunately, Philadelphia Commercial Development Corporation no longer exists.
It's a bummer.
Yeah. It was closed down. Some of its programs were shifted to other agencies. To this day, I have never heard anybody give me a decent explanation as to why PCDC had to be closed.
It's interesting.
Unfortunately, my guess is that it was mostly political, and the small businesses in this city probably suffered more than they had to because it was
Because of
closed.
that. Yeah, because the other one is Philadelphia Industrial Development Corporation still
Yes.
in existence?
Absolutely, yes.
So there was PIDC and
Right.
PCDC, and I'm sure that there are like organizations in other cities. Okay?
Yes.
Maybe not, well, they wouldn't be called the same because they start with the word Philadelphia.
Philadelphia.
But nevertheless, the big industrial development thing is one thing.
Right.
That's more of a power thing.
Yes.
The little person gets squeezed.
Absolutely.
And they're the ones that could use SBA and PCDC and all these other things. And one of the problems is that that the government maybe or those in power don't recognize that. And then there is a lot of fraud and waste and other things that goes along with that, right?
Absolutely. I would not minimize that. As I said, I spent 7 years looking at government-funded programs, and I saw a lot of waste. But at the same time, I saw a lot that was done that was just, so good for groups of people
Yeah.
that you needed to keep those things in place. You didn't need to throw out the baby with the bathwater, as they say.
Right, right. So, if someone, our viewer, listeners, need help with their business,
Yeah.
what would you do for them, and how do they get in touch with you?
Oh, okay. Well, they would get in touch with, most people get in touch with me through some type of referral.
Okay,
I don't advertise.
right.
I don't do very much in terms of marketing at this point either.
You have a website?
No website.
Okay.
And the reason that I can get by with doing these things, which I would not tell other people to do, is
Right.
because I'm not pursuing a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pursuing interesting work.
Right, right.
And a lot of what I'm pursuing are things that I have in my head, and which, quite frankly, a lot of this will not pay off. I'm very cognizant of the fact that because I think it's a good idea doesn't mean that other people are going to pay for that good idea.
Right. No, I get it. It's
Yeah.
like other people feel the same about their own thing.
Yeah, but for people who are interested in reaching out to me, certainly are welcome to do that. Probably the best way to get in touch with me would be send me an email.
Okay.
Send me an email at memassociates@gmail.com.
Okay, so MEM Associates, but what's the first part? Is it Malcolm at MEM Associates?
No, just memassociates@gmail.com.
Oh, that's it? Okay.
And that's
that's
it.
right, that's right. What am I thinking of? I'm a little screwy up there.
Okay, yeah.
So, I know the comments, all right, okay. But, okay, so somebody gets a hold of you,
Yes.
okay? And they say, Malcolm, I need your help,
Mm-hmm.
okay? So, what do they do? What kind of stuff do you do? And what are some of the most gratifying things that you've done? Start with some of the most gratifying things you've done, and then how would you help people that reach out to you now?
Okay, I would think with some of the most gratifying things that I've done in working with, I don't know how many small businesses over the years, anytime I can pull someone out of a crisis, anytime I can get someone who may not be in crisis, but where I can see that long term there are problems that are going to develop for them, and I can show them how to avoid those problems. When I can do those kinds of things, that's most gratifying to me.
Mm-hmm.
To take a business that isn't working well and make sure that it does have a potential, that it has the potential for future. I can't guarantee them anything,
Right.
But if I can get them moving in the right direction, that's very satisfying to me. Uh, the other side of that is that there are businesses with whom I've worked that I just feel so badly about because they didn't make it.
Yeah, that's tough. I mean, how do you tell somebody, forget it?
Yeah.
How do you do that? You've had to do that, right?
I've had to do that, and I try to couch it as nicely as I can, and I will usually try to use the numbers to demonstrate
Yeah.
why they're not going to get where they want to go. And that what they need to do is start planning now on how they're going to reduce their exposure and what they're going to do next. You don't want to fight so long and so hard that when it ends, you have no alternatives.
Right.
And now you have to look and say, what do I do now?
Yeah, well, that happens to a lot of people.
It happens to a lot of people, and as an example, there's one client that I had in particular who was a construction contractor, and he was a relatively small guy, not from this area, but he worked hard, and he was building something. And I was in touch with him, put a few things together for him, helped him considerably, and then lost track of him.
Mm.
Well, he ended up taking a contract that he really shouldn't have taken.
Uh-huh.
And he took this contract because he didn't listen to or remember one of the things that I had told him, and that was, don't trust anyone, and certainly don't trust the politicians.
Hello.
Just don't do that. Well,
Yeah.
he trusted a politician, a highly placed politician who guaranteed him that things were going to be fine. And he took a project, and I think he could have completed that project with just some additional help. Instead, he ended up bankrupt.
Oh, God.
And I didn't know what had happened with him until he had already signed a contract, and it was too late to do much of anything for him. And I touched base with him, and he said, "No, I think everything's going to be okay." And at that point, he didn't want any other assistance. He thought,
No,
I don't want to rock this boat.
Yeah.
And he ended up bankrupt.
Wow. And so did his business go bankrupt, or did he have to go bankrupt?
Both.
He went Chapter 7. That's total bankruptcy, folks.
Yes.
And by the way, one thing that I always, when I discuss this with my students, is always form a LLC or a C Corp or an S Corp.
Yeah.
Don't have a partnership or a sole proprietorship, because if you go bankrupt, they'll take everything you have.
Yes.
As opposed to the company going bankrupt, of which you are an employee. That's just my thought about it, my opinion. But if you're the other thing, then you got to go Chapter 7, and they can take everything from you.
That's right.
So everything. So
And unfortunately, for most business owners now, banks, other institutions, they understand that, so they insist on your personal guarantees.
Yep.
They-
I had to do that originally
Yeah.
when I started Four Eyes, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I never forget when we started it with basically no money, just about $1,000, and years ago. And I'll never forget, I had to sign off on my house or whatever it was.
Absolutely.
And once we got to the point where we were profitable, changed things, paid things, I'll never forget, like, burning that thing or
Mhm.
having a celebration that we were no longer individually responsible, but the company had gotten big enough that the banks would take the company's signature, me as CEO of the company,
Yes.
as opposed to personal liability.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal. So
It
a very
really
big
is.
deal. It is. And I think along that line, I'll never forget, I had a contractor who was working on my house. And I said, well, I need to know how much it is, obviously, lay it all out, and then how much you want for a deposit. A deposit, right?
Yes.
Contractor. And he gave me a number, and I said, what? That's not even going to cover your cost of goods that you have to buy. He said, well, I'm not a good business person. I said to him, that's obvious.
Yeah.
He said, I'm going to give you more than you're asking for that will at least cover the materials you got to buy for me.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that's the kind of stuff
Oh, yes.
you work with people on.
Yes.
So if I'm calling you and I'm saying, Malcolm, you got to help me, walk me through something, what would you do?
Well, it depends on what you're trying to walk through.
Right, okay.
The first thing that I'm going to do is have you explain to me what you see as potential problems. Well, even before that, how you view the job, how whatever it is that you're going to do, how you view that, and then what you see as the potential problems. When you finish giving me the potential problems, I'll probably add about 5 or 6 more to that list.
Good.
And then when you say, oh, I hadn't thought of that, I hadn't thought of that either, oh, that's a problem. Now I know that I've got you believing that I can help you.
There you go.
And it's important for me to have people believe that I can help them, because if they don't, we're wasting each other's time.
Yeah. You got to do that.
Yeah.
Why do people hire consultants if they're not going to listen to them?
I've never understood it. And many people are just that way. They'll hire me, they'll hire other consultants, they'll hire attorneys, and then decide that, oh no, I don't want to take that advice, and they've wasted money giving it to them, and then they're going to probably make a few bad decisions.
And then they're done.
They're done.
Man, it's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's crazy. Why would people do that? If somebody wants to get a hold of Malcolm McGraw at memassociates@gmail.com, that's right.
That's it.
They better listen to you, because they're going to be spending money, right? You don't do it for free.
That's right.
Yeah. So they want your expertise.
Yeah.
And it's interesting that you've been doing this for years, right?
Absolutely, yes.
So it's not like you just walked out of a classroom, right?
No.
With a degree,
No.
and are taking theory into this.
No.
This is all practical stuff that
Absolutely.
you've seen over the years,
Yes.
right?
Absolutely.
And then you're going to help this person go like, hey, I've seen this. You know, you're going to slide down this ladder, and there's nothing on the bottom, right?
That's right.
You're going to fall into the Grand Canyon. It's a ladder that goes to an abyss.
Mm-hmm.
And
That's where too many people are headed. And I understand to some extent, because there are a lot of people out here who will claim to be able to help.
mm-hmm.
And what they generally can do is help themselves to that first check.
Right.
And once they get that first check, now they're looking for somebody new.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate, but that's life. You have to find people who are dependable, and try to find people who have been doing it for some time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And who are there when you need them.
Yes.
You know, a lot of times the consultant says, okay, here's the hours. I fulfilled the hours. Next month we'll fulfill it. But wait a minute, I need your help now.
Yeah.
Right? And then they're like, call me next month.
Yeah, no, that doesn't work for most small business people. And it's interesting, over the years, I've developed good, strong friendships with a number of people
Yeah.
who started off as clients.
It is great.
Yeah.
It is great. And I remember that you gave advice. We worked together at the Federal Reserve Bank in Philly.
Yes.
And you spoke there and were the keynote, basically, speaker, if I recall. And the advice you gave to people was very enlightening and important.
I don't know if I could say I was the keynote because we had some heavy hitters.
We did have some heavy hitters.
who showed
but I
up
think
for
you
that.
introduced people too.
Yes.
Okay, and I introduced you, and then we had some real. You're right. We had some very heavy hitters.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we had a ice storm that same day,
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. And,
which just goes to show, no matter who you are, nothing's ever guaranteed.
you're right. You're right. God, I'm thinking about that. I think we even had, and I could be wrong on this, but we had some pretty well-known celebrities
Yes.
there.
Yes, we did.
Sports stars, if I remember correctly. Yeah, and the Federal Reserve Bank of Philadelphia, as I said earlier, most people think it's a government agency, but it's quasi-governmental.
Right.
The president and Congress has to approve the director of the Federal Reserve Bank, but it's quasi-governmental.
Right.
Malcolm, it's always great talking to you. It's always great.
Oh, we always have such good conversations and good
We
times.
do.
Yes.
Speaking with you is enlightening. I hope that our viewers and listeners have gotten some great information. Once again, if you want to get a hold of Malcolm, it's memassociates@gmail.com.
That's
And
right.
that's the best way to get a hold of him. I want to thank you, Malcolm.
And
I look forward to seeing you soon and for us catching up on other things. And this has been great.
And-
Thank you, sir.
and thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
my
And
pleasure.
This has been a lot of fun, and hopefully it's going to help a lot of people.
I hope so. That's great. Thanks, folks. Thanks, Malcolm.
All right.
We'll see you. That's it.
That was a nice
Yeah,
conversation.
it was. Wasn't it great? That was great.